All right, we're going to call this meeting to order. This is the September 26, 2022 Board of Education meeting. We're going to start off with the approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Perfect. Do I have approval of the September 12, 2022 minutes? Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do you have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Perfect.
All right, board members, item 4 is financial statement.
Good afternoon, board members. I provided the August 2022 financial statements and check register for your review. As of August 2022, we have collected 98.9% of our budgeted ad valorem tax revenues compared to the 97.7% that we had received this time last year. Our total expenditures in the general fund as of August 31st were 98% of the budget compared to 94% last year. In the 11th month of our fiscal year, all things being equal, we should be around 91.6% of our budgeted expenditures. The expenditure overage is primarily due to the devices and textbooks that were originally budgeted. As I said last month, we had two very large textbook adoptions for ELA and math this year. Our monthly statements and check registers are available for viewing on the board website after they are approved, and all bank accounts have been reconciled as of August 31st, 2022.
Board members, I recommend approval of financial statement for August 2022.
Okay, you've heard the superintendent's recommendation for the approval for the financial statement for August of 2022. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Item 5 is consent items, and I recommend the board approve the consent items related to out-of-town and overnight field trips.
You've heard the superintendent's recommendation to approve the consent items. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion?
I want to point out that in this particular case, we have a number of trips that take place during the course of the year, and I'm appreciative of the new process that our folks are sending in. I hope it's helpful to you, but in the case of these consent items, the vast majority of these have to do with academic competition, some art competition, but I think it's good to note that that's a really important piece of the work we do. The schools and debate and math going all over the place, but I think we're worth it.
Perfect. All those in favor?
All right, item 6 is business. Before I give recommendation, I'd like to just briefly talk to you about items that are listed A through K. They are all related to architectural services agreements for each school. And these are specifically related to One Rebel, One Future and the vision. And so I want to say, first of all, we have not approved any expenditures for projects related to these. This is part of our capital plan. It was approved in the budget meeting, but they are listed as unknown fund sources. So we do not have the funds to do these projects. However, because we are in the midst of One Rebel, One Future and the conversation about the needs here, we want to begin preparing some initial design concepts to address those should we be able to move forward. So I just want to make it clear that there is not a plan to do these without additional revenue source. We'll be talking more throughout the year. That being said, they're organized in a way that's similar to the pattern of work that we would do if we were successful with One Rebel, One Future, in that you would see east and west, Valley Ridge coming first and then those following. So the architectural agreements, a lot of the work from here until the point to determine whether we're able to do the projects or not will mostly be focused, I think, in those areas. I think Sean will be the best way to categorize that. So this is just getting some initial design work ready should we get the opportunity.
So this helps with scope, budgeting.
That's right. It
So
does.
we have someone should cover.
Absolutely. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. All right. So we'll start one by one with these. Item A is approved architectural services agreement for existing gym renovation, new classrooms at Vestavia Elementary West.
You have heard the superintendent's recommendation to approve the architectural services agreement for existing gym renovation and new classrooms at Vestavia Hills West. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
I should note too on these, I'm sorry I didn't, but in each of these, there are additional facility improvements that go into just the care of the existing facilities, have when it be explicitly spelled out in the name that is inside the agreement. You'll hear more about these in the report in just a few minutes. Item B, I recommend the board approve architectural services agreement for classroom and gymnasium addition and interior renovations at Vestavia Hills Elementary East.
You've heard the superintendent's recommendation to approve architectural services agreement for classroom and gymnasium addition and interior renovations to Vestavia Hills Elementary East. Do I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Item C, I recommend the board approve architectural services agreement for the kitchen addition and interior renovations at Vestavia Hills Elementary, Valley Ridge.
You've heard the superintendent's recommendation to approve the architectural services agreement for kitchen addition and interior renovations for Vestavia Hills Elementary, Valley Ridge. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Item D, I recommend the board approve the architectural services agreement for parking and drive improvements at Vestavia Hills High School.
You've heard the superintendent's recommendation to approve the architectural services agreement for parking and drive improvements for Vestavia Hills High School. Do I have a motion to approve?
Moved.
Do I have a second? Discussion? All those in favor?
Item E, I recommend the board approve the architectural services agreement for arts athletics, kitchen, cafeteria improvements at Vestavia Hills High School.
You've heard the superintendent's recommendation to approve the architectural services agreement for arts athletics, kitchen, cafeteria improvements at the Vestavia Hills High School. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Item F, I recommend the board approve the architectural services agreement for an auxiliary gym for Liberty Park Middle School.
You've heard the superintendent's recommendation to approve the architectural services agreement for an auxiliary gym at Liberty Park Middle School. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Item G, I recommend the board approve the facility assessment upgrades for Lewis Bezitz Middle School.
You've heard the superintendent's recommendation to approve the facility assessment upgrades for Lewis Bezitz Middle School. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Item H, I recommend the board approve architectural services agreement for interior and exterior renovations to the former Vestavia Hills Chamber of Commerce building.
You've heard the superintendent's recommendation to approve the architectural services agreement for interior and exterior renovations to the former Vestavia Hills Chamber of Commerce building. A motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Ms. Weaver, I want to point out that that building is not currently in our possession, but it's part of our shared use agreement with the city. It will become our possession once they have vacated and moved into Gold's Gym.
All those in favor?
Item I, I recommend the board approve the architectural services agreement for facility assessment upgrades for Vestavia Hills Elementary, Iowa Heights.
You've heard the superintendent's recommendation to approve the architectural services agreement for facility assessment upgrades for Vestavia Hills Elementary, Iowa Heights. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Item J, I recommend the board approve the architectural services agreement for facility assessment upgrades for Vestavia Hills Elementary, Liberty Park.
You heard the superintendent's recommendation to approve the architectural services agreement for facility assessment upgrades for Vestavia Hills Elementary, Liberty Park. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Discussion?
One thing, Dr. Freeman, these architectural agreements, the percentages that, the fees we pay are based on percentages. Those vary from contract to contract, but those are all industry standard percentages based on the size of the project or whether they're considered major renovations.
That's right. Sean, maybe just elaboration a bit on that, how that's determined.
Yes, so each project is based on the state sliding scale. So as the project amount gets larger, our fee gets smaller. There's also monies in there for major renovation. That's part of the fee. So each fee will be adjusted based on the amount of the project, the amount of renovation that's involved in the project, and the contract amount.
Those are all I guess, anchored to, I think you say a state standard fee.
The Alabama State Department of Education sliding scale.
Thank you.
All those in favor?
Item K, I recommend the board approve facility assessment upgrades for Vestavia's high school freshman campus.
You've heard the superintendent's recommendation to approve the facilities assessment upgrades for the Vestavia Hills School freshman campus. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Board members, item L is an update regarding policy 6.28. This is a policy that the board approved in July of this year related to mental health.
Sorry.
Jay, this is your first.
Testing one.
The mental health opt-in policy that was approved in July of 2022 was in response to a legislative action that the governor signed that had to do with mental health procedures in the school. One of which was that there would be a mental health coordinator assigned at each of our campuses, which each of our schools in the state system, in the state, which we have one. And the second part of that had to do with the parents' ability to opt into and have to opt into services related to mental health. At that time, there was not essentially a great deal of guidance for boards in terms of what mental health was considered. The legislation clearly articulates that mental health is part of otherwise known as counseling or guidance services. And so we took an approach that I thought was necessary at that time, which was to make sure anything that was offered through our guidance counseling office would be opted in. And so we went through the process of registration, and over the course of the school year, the vast majority of our parents have opted in to at least the large guidance counseling. The areas where there may be lower numbers that are mental health related services more specifically are things that we would get parent permissions for anyway and have always been doing that in the past. And so while the exercise has been difficult in some ways, I would say that it's an affirmation from our parents that what we're doing in guidance counseling is a good thing. It's something that we want to be very transparent about, and it's not anything that violates the law. That being said, the State Department in the last couple of weeks has released additional guidance for boards on what can be considered mental health opt-in. It does allow for fewer criteria to opt into services, and it more specifically goes to therapeutic services that parents would opt into. And so I would tell you that our process would be planning for next year how we would implement that. I do not think it would be prudent to change course at this point during the year because I don't want to raise any questions if there's anything going on. I mean, we're very open, I think, about what we're doing in counseling and doing really good work. But we'll stay the course of what we have this year, and we'll be developing how we'll do mental health opt-ins next year, but it will be much more tightly centered on therapeutic services, assuming that the legislature or there's not additional guidance that changes that again. So that's probably the main reason I'd like to just wait to see if there's any additional changes to it. But I did want you to know that has taken place, and we'll stay the course of what we're doing in just the interest of being prudent. Questions about that? Okay, item M, I recommend the board approve the licensing agreement with Bandwagon.
You've heard the superintendent's recommendation to approve the licensing agreement with Bandwagon. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion?
I'll point out that this is, we've got several agreements that have been coming in. This is our latest one. Bandwagon has quite a relationship already established with our PTOs. And so in this particular agreement, there is a difference in what licensing rights occur for products that are not sold specifically to PTO. The board receives funding, receives some portion of the sale of those. But as it relates to PTO, we wanted them to keep their relationship. And so that is a different category, a different percentage give back to, and actually more for PTOs, which is good. So I just want to point that out. That's a uniqueness to this.
Before we move on real quick, why don't we do a facility assessment for this building if we're doing all the schools?
Well,
Because then this need a little help.
Yeah,
Jay, what do you think?
We'll get to it, but I just want to say that that won't be, it's not the first priority of work, but we will. Because I would say this in tandem with the chamber building that will become an annex we will do. So I just, at this point, this would be an easier project to take on. But we will do it.
It's in scope.
Yes, good question.
All those in favor?
All right. Item N is.
That's mine. All right, it is that time of year to select an AASB delegate and an alternate. Very esteemed positions. Do I have a nomination for our 2022-2023 delegate? One of the three, I'll have to nominate Mr. Handy.
I'll nominate Mr. Handy.
There we go. Mr. Handy has got a nomination. Do I have a second?
Second.
Excellent. We also have to select a alternate. Should Mr. Handy not be available to be our AASB delegate? Do I have a?
I'll nominate Mr. Stewart.
I'll go.
Excellent.
I might
Excellent.
not go anyway.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Great. Thank you very much. All those in favor of Mr. Handy and Mr. Stewart?
Aye.
I would like to point out that my attendance last year, I went with a little trepidation, but ended up being a good meeting. But what I really liked about that meeting was to realize what a neat and awesome board and superintendent we have. Because I come to find out there's some school boards out there that members don't even talk to each other. And it was very interesting to see just the dynamics taking place and to sit back and realize what we have. And we're very grateful for it and appreciative. So,
Thank you both for filling that role.
Item 7, I recommend the board approve the personnel actions as submitted.
You've heard the superintendent's recommendation to approve the following personnel items. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Right. Thank you. Okay, board members, going to move to our administrative report sections. Got two for you. One is, the first one is an exciting marketing effort called Next Steps. And Dr. Cooper is here to give you a little heads up about what's coming with Next Steps. Dr. Cooper,
Yes, sir. Thank
take it
you.
away.
Thank you also for allowing me to go before Dr. Martin. Excited to be in front of you all to talk about our next steps initiatives. We've been working on this or talking about it in theory since early this summer after the meeting that I had with Dr. Freeman on some different steps that he wanted me to take going into this school year for our students. So just getting right into it, have two main goals. We want to make sure that we're transparent and clear to everyone. First goal is to educate students and families on the various academic pathways available to our secondary students. Ms. Weaver does a great job of putting together our career fairs at our middle schools, and that's one of the resounding things that we get from our parents is they wish they had this information for their first child when we're talking about the high school pathways and things of that nature. And we got several of those conversations at our visits as well. So that's one of the goals. We want to make sure that we create resources that clearly communicate the pathways, prerequisites, and varied opportunities for our families. So when we think of next steps moving forward, that's the main go-to that we want all of our parents to go to. On our website, on our school's website, at our different campuses and things like that. And it's for parents of students and students for the rising 6th grade through 12th grade. So for current 5th grade parents, they can start looking at the different opportunities that the middle school will provide their children and be able to ask more informed questions and get more informed answers. So we split it off into two different phases. The first phase is we are working on having one place for all of our parents to go for a course selection guide that will be up 365 days a year. We'll never pull it down. Once it's up, parents will be able to go in and see what courses we're offering, what academic pathways we're offering at all of our secondary locations. So all 2 middle schools and both high school campuses. They'll be able to see everywhere from math all the way down to arts education, foreign language, and things of that nature, so that they'll have something to aspire towards, especially those 5th grade students looking at how it clearly goes from 6th grade, unified arts as far as the foreign language all the way through their senior year We'll also have different explanations in there about things like the global syllabi literacy and just different areas for parents to be able to click onto. And the next one is our next steps meetings. So to go into a little more detail about our course selection guide, we will have those on our district website by January 2023. The new one for the 2023-2024 school year. We will post all of the ones that we are currently falling under next week, so that parents can get an idea and get used to knowing where to go and get used to knowing what it is that we've offered just for this year, which mainly is similar to what we've offered over previous school years, so that they can start kind of guiding those conversations with their students, contacting the school if they would like to, or contacting us here at the central office. In those course selection guides, it will include the state's description of each of the courses that we're offering, and any courses that we have here locally, you'll have those explanations in there as well. And also have our different pathways through our dual enrollment partnerships through Just State and through University of Alabama Early College, as well as information about the Academy of Craft Training. So parents will be able to go in and look at those, and we'll have links, hyperlinks and videos coming up in the future for parents to be able to get more information, students as well, on each one of those academic pathways. I'm excited because this room didn't look like this on Friday. We were in here all day working on this plan. We had representatives from all of our secondary campuses, and we worked from 8 to about 3:30 on making sure we had the guidelines down pat and our next steps as far as marching orders, as to making sure we have this as a full document for you all coming up. And we will meet again in October and November to just finalize our plans to make sure that the product we're putting out is what we would like for parents to have and what we feel like as parents, because several of us in the room that day were parents, would like to see. So that's phase one. Any questions on the course selection guides? We purchased a live binder, so we'll always be able to update them. And what we'll have on the first page of each of the school live binder is updated as of. So parents can get a good idea of what course selection guide they're looking at and if any information has changed in that book. All right, so phase two is the next steps transition meetings. And so those are the ones I'm trying to temper my excitement about those, because it's pretty much what we really need. I think every school system needs. It's just a night where parents come in and we just talk academics as far as the pathways that each one of the campuses have to offer. So freshman campus, I'll have dates up here in a second, but the freshman campus at their next steps night, which is November 17th, 15th. I get them mixed up on purpose just because Bill did it. But freshman campus night, we will have for incoming eighth graders, or upward, which we call incoming ninth graders, for them to be able to come in and just have a time for Mr. Mann and his staff to just go through the pathways and things that they would like for parents to know coming in. We'll do the same thing at the main campus for rising sophomores through seniors. Juniors and seniors are welcome to come just to get a refresher or get more information on the different pathways that we have to offer there. And then on the middle school level, we'll have a specific time for sixth graders, upcoming sixth graders to come in, as well as rising seventh and eighth graders, so they can get more detailed information as to what each academic pathway and how it leads into the high schools. Another component we'll have is our dual enrollment partners will actually be there. We have them booked to talk about their pathways and their programs. We'll have just there to specifically talk about the courses that sophomores can take and earn credit for. I think I may have presented, we talked on our podcast, but Just State now has an agreement with us to where they have the BOGO, which is you take one CTE class, they'll pay for it. They've automatically decided that they'll pay for the academic class that you pair along with that. But should you want to take an additional course or you not want to take any CTE courses at all with Just State, they've now reduced the price and they're doing half off for all of their courses. So they'll be able to talk to students and families about that, as well as you are talking about their programs. We'll have Academy of Craft Training there. We'll have them at both of our high school campuses. Our middle school campuses have requested that they be present for them as well, just to give students an idea of other course offerings, pathways out there. You can get certified in welding and anything like that, construction, plumbing, HVAC. We'll also speak to our athletic pathways. We're working on a design to where no matter what athlete it is, what sport it is, that student will be able to see their academic pathway with strength and conditioning and athletics period in there and make it attainable for them. Should they want that syllabus literacy, the global syllabus literacy, we'll have that pathway out so that they can see what classes I need to take each year on there. Same thing for health sciences or NCTE pathway for our athletes or the AP gauntlet. We'll have that pathway for them to be able to see every class that they need to take when they need to take it. AP, foreign language, arts education, and all of the 4 core. So those dates, I did have them there. So it's November 15th for freshman campus, high school campus, main campus will be on November 17th, and both of our middle school campuses will be in February.
So we got some marketing we'll do in the next weeks or days, just heads up kind of thing.
Have a meeting with Wick tomorrow. Start working on videos and getting those commercials out there.
I can't tell you how excited I am about this. As a parent, this has been one area where we have been lacking, especially in the transition years as you move from schools, because we have done a fantastic job of creating these pathways and these courses. But it's come a long way since we were all parents, and you don't know to look for these when you're in 8th grade parent or 6th grade. So thank you, Dr. Cooper. I think this is going to bring a lot of exposure to the great work that's being done at the high school where they have as many classes as I had available to me my freshman year in college. And so I really think this is going to be an incredibly positive thing for all our students and our families. So thank you for your work on this.
I appreciate the
All right, Dr. Martin.
input that this board has given on it, because I really think, I mean.
That might be a nice word for it.
Well, but the reality is being parents yourself, walking through it, and I think it's important for our community to understand. So there's been a lot of conversation to get to the point where we're comfortable and make it more clear, because when there's so much information, if you can't get it zeroed down to what really matters to a parent, it can be overwhelming. So really good work. I'm excited about it. The school's got I think have a great plan. All right, our last report tonight is related to One Rebel, One Future. And while you approved a good number of the architectural agreements tonight, I want you to know some of the background of what led us to that point. Dr. Martin and Sean Conn will be sharing that with you. But this is one of a report that I'll give you each month about a different facet of One Rebel, One Future. So for those who are wanting to be more informed about it, it gives you some more background about the specific pieces of what we'll be doing in One Rebel, One Future, should we be successful. Dr. Martin?
All right. Thank you. So a facility assessment was completed. I believe it's about 170 pages. Dr. Freeman asked if I would go through each page point by point this evening. So I hope that no one has plans, right? I'm joking. Dr. Cooper referenced the podcast that he and Ms. Wedgeworth do, and I had a chance to visit with them and talk a little bit about operations. And one of the points that I made was it's pretty neat to know that this has all been going on, all of the background and the study and the work for some of the One Rebel, One Future initiative really started 3 or 4 years ago. And so this has been something that we've been talking about in terms of facility assessment now for the last several years. Tonight we'll work with Lathan and Associates to talk a little bit. You've seen this slide before. I think this was a slide that Dr. Freeman showed you back in July. We'll talk a little bit about the condition of facilities. I'll go back over just a little bit on safety and security. I know I shared that with the board before. And then next month in October, we'll have Schneider, another partner of ours, come in and talk a little bit about our healthy schools campaign. So jumping back real quick to safety and security, this is the charge given to our superintendent, Dr. Freeman, just in terms of making sure that our environment's safe and secure for all of our students. And so as follow-up, these are the items that we continue to do here in Vestavia Hills. It's SROs. We have SROs with us here this evening. We also have SROs on every one of our campuses. We also were involved in a vulnerability report for our campuses, and you can see here what that vulnerability report consisted of. That was with DOL Solutions, and we did an infrastructure security audit of all of our campuses, prioritized the vulnerability list for those campuses, and then mitigation recommendations. And you can see how they broke this down, what we refer to as the Vestavia Hills City Schools rings of security. So that outer ring is really our community of Vestavia Hills, where we sit, the proximity to Birmingham, the proximity to interstates that'll travel, to Georgia and Texas and Florida and north. Our campus perimeter, you can see there with the yellow ring. So they looked and assessed that area all the way down to, if you look at the small, it's very hard to see the letter B there, the high school, all the way down to the classroom level. And so a couple of months ago, I talked with you a little bit about the procedure and the protocol and administrative procedures that we took on as part of this audit. And then talked a little bit with the board about some of the infrastructure recommendations that we had in terms of safety and security. And so that's something we'll talk with SROs about tomorrow and continue that conversation throughout the fall, hopefully bringing recommendations in the spring and start moving in summer 23 on some of those recommendations from DLM. So any questions? I know that's a real quick follow-up to what we discussed before, but just want to make sure there are no questions before we move forward on safety and security. In terms of building capacity with our design teams, I know Dr. Rainey has been meeting with design teams here in the month of September. Our plan, Sean and I will start meeting with teams in October. We'll start with our design teams in some of the different areas that we met with last year. And then we'll start our meetings with principals and SROs. And we'll start to have conversation about the facility assessment and where they would like to see prioritization be. That's a pretty long, significant document, as I mentioned before. And so we'll break down their individual schools and discuss what the areas of need they feel are most in their buildings. There are some areas where, based on Dr. Freeman and Sean and Schneider, we'll go ahead and move forward with those, but also want to pull in from principals what areas they think are most important. And then our planning to see their bring contracts in the spring and start looking at the One Rubber One Future initiative. And so with that said, Sean's going to take us through just the process and really walk down the facility.
Board, thank you. First of all, thank you for your trust in our company and approving our contracts this evening. It does mean a lot to us. We certainly appreciate it. What I want to show you very quickly is an example of what we did in the facility assessment. We looked at each campus and we did in fact look at the board office. It is part of the facility assessment. There are two separate assessments, one for the Gresham property prior to the board purchasing it, and also for what was Berry and so those are separate from the facility assessments. But what we did was we give a verbal description of, in general, what the building condition is like. Then we have the plan of the building and give color-coded notations on condition of the building overall. And then we get into square footage and all of the sort of technical items that are occurring at each campus. Then we go into more verbal description about things that need to be addressed. A lot of the schools have new additions, but some of them are as old as 60s, middle 50s. So those toilet rooms, for example, would need to be addressed, not just finish-wise, but also ADA accessibility to, again, make all of the campuses across the system accessible, secure, and safe. And so all of that information is within this one I'm showing you in particular is for Vestavia East. Then we back up and we give, again, because the facilities typically have been added on to many times. We look at the roof separately because those roofs will have separate ages. They'll have separate materials. So each of those materials are listed in what we're calling the different areas. They're coded to similar to the building condition. This is just specific to the roof for East. So it goes through each of the materials, the age of the roof that's there, the expectancy of it, so you can plan in your capital planning for when those roofs might need to be replaced. Then also wanted to show you this slide. This happens to be Dolly Ridge, but the real reason I wanted to show this was about accessibility. We do have a soccer field that was finished a year or two ago that was installed at Dolly Ridge. Has no parking at that level. So we would propose a 10 to 12 spot handicap accessible parking down on that lower level. And then we're also showing access from the top parking area via stair and sidewalk to get down from that parking. You can also access the parking that's down near the playground to get down to those fields, so that it's not only usable for the school, but also usable for the city and for any events they may have.
This is really our kickoff to start the conversations with our design teams and our principals. This is sort of a tongue-in-cheek, said before, we go through point by point, but this is really just an opportunity for us to show you a snippet of what this facility assessment entailed. And one thing we can do, if you're interested, is provide you with an electronic copy of the assessments that Sean talked about before. So all of the schools, with the exception of Fitz Middle School and then Dolly Ridge.
In terms of different components of the building, though, Sean, you mentioned roofing. What are the other?
Roofing, building envelope, ADA accessibility, the systems, so plumbing, mechanical, electrical. Now, we didn't address mechanical specifically in ours because that's a part of Schneider's contract, which we'll talk about next month. So there is a good bit of integration between Schneider, ourselves as the design team. We have DOL's report. All of those items will be incorporated as part of the facility assessment upgrades.
And one other area I know that you charged me with was working with Paycom. So we look at all of our parking lot areas
Right.
and everything else as well. Dr.
Comprehensive, main thing we really communicate to you on what we have now existing and what we need to give it a facelift. And an important part of that is what Dr. Martin just mentioned. This fall, the principals are working on prioritizing the things inside the building we want to focus on, just to make sure that we are accurate in how we budget and plan for that.
Short, sweet, to the point. We'll be back next month.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I believe that will do it for today. Any other questions? All right, we're adjourned.